Dr. Wong.
Sorry?
Dr. Wood is experiencing a router issue. He's had to reset his router. Perhaps we do want to go ahead and get started while he's working on that more fundamental technical issue.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the update. So let's go ahead and then get started. I'd like to call this
meeting is being recorded.
I'm going to call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everybody to our November quarterly meeting of the State Board. And if Ms. Linden could go ahead and give us a roll call so we could establish quorum.
Okay, Dr. Wong,
Here.
Member Morigomi, Member Brandbein,
Here.
Dr. Garcia,
Present.
Dr. Kawaguchi,
Here.
Member Linden here, Dr. Pruitt, Member Sims,
Here.
Dr. Turetsky,
Here.
Member Yu.
So it looks like we have quorum. Let's go ahead and go on to item number 2 on the agenda, public comment for items not on the agenda. Madam Moderator, if you could open up the...
If I could for just a moment, Dr. Wong, if our moderator could go back one more slide. I apologize. So to the new order of business today. There we go. So Dr. Wong and I have in front of us a new order of business. It is also here in the PowerPoint. Just wanted to let folks know that we adjusted things a bit in order to accommodate our new member, Donald Yu, who will be joining us after lunch, and our Vice President, Mark Morigomi, who will be joining us in the next 45 minutes. We've also tried to prioritize the business today that requires action and those that are simply staff reports that are included within materials that have been read. We can skip through those and get folks to closed session in order to keep your day at a reasonable, 10 or 12 hours. So Dr. Wong and I will be referencing this list and I'll have it in front of me, but we'll just to let folks know we're going to take business a bit out of order today.
This is the moderator. I have Joseph Pruitt online now. And Joseph, can I get a quick mic check from you?
Hello, sorry I'm late.
No worries, we can hear you. Thank you.
Good morning. Ms. Linden, did you want to, I guess, just call Dr. Pruitt's name for a roll call so we could, again, establish quorum?
Sure. Dr. Pruitt.
Present.
Okay, great.
So I believe we have quorum. So let's go ahead and now move on to item number 2, public comments for items not on the agenda.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment for items not on the agenda, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access that Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Okay, looks like we're closed. We are now going to be moving on to item number 4 on the agenda, discussion and possible approval of the August 27, 2021 board meeting minutes. Are there any comments from board members regarding these minutes? Oh. Okay, Madam Moderator, if you could open up the Q&A for comments regarding the August 27, 2021 meeting minutes.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests.
Dr. Wong, would you like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Yes, please. Yes, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented, please.
This is Dave. I would motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
This is Jeff. I second the motion.
Thank you. And now we are open for public comment.
All right, it appears there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Ms. Linden, if you could take a roll call.
Okay, Dr. Wong,
Oh, aye.
Member Moridomi, Member Brandvine,
Aye.
Dr. Garcia,
Aye.
Dr. Kawaguchi,
Aye.
Member Linden, aye. Dr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Member Sims,
Aye.
Dr. Turetsky,
Aye.
Member Yu. Okay.
So it looks like we have motion passes. Let's go ahead and go on to item number 5 on the agenda, Association Regulatory Boards of Optometry, ARBO, Quarterly Meeting Report. Shar, do you want to give us an update?
Yes, thank you so much, members. Unfortunately, I was not aware of a quarterly executive officer meeting in which I was able to participate since our last board meeting, but we have had individual engagement with ARBO and NBEO. We are moving forward with our risk mitigation task force and have inquired with ARBO about their contingency planning in the case of some sort of outage or inability to conduct testing at the Charlottesville location. We have also engaged ARBO and NBEO in a discussion about financial conflicts of interest and just ensuring that we are doing our due diligence to investigate the separation between the two organizations so that we know that ARBO's certification of or oversight of the National Board of Examiners in Optometry exams is as robust as possible. We have our next meeting set with ARBO for December 1st, and we will, of course, bring to the board any report out from that meeting as well. I'm not sure if Dr. Pruitt would like to provide any comment, as Dr. Pruitt is a appointee to the INBERC board, which is the oversight board for the NBEO exams. And I apologize, Dr. Pruitt, that we didn't discuss previously, but if there was any sort of comment that you wanted to share with the board or the public in that meeting, please, of course, welcome you to do so.
Yes, I would bring up that the conflict of interest between the NBEO and ARBO that was brought up by our board was brought up and talked about. There was a little bit of discussion about whether or not it was a conflict of interest, but it did spark the change, and so they're actually going to consult with their lawyers, and it did start the conversation. And so it was brought up, and it was recognized that it was this board that found the potential conflict, and so they are going to explore it further.
And just to give members and the community stakeholders context, NBEO does provide funding to ARBO, but then of course we know that through INBERC, ARBO also oversees the validity and the rigor of the NBEO exam. And so of course in wisdom of our board president and board members, just wanted to inquire how ARBO and NBEO ensure that there isn't a pay-for-play conflict of interest in practice. So we are discussing that issue with ARBO, and as I said, we will be meeting with them on December 1st. I think we've also got both Ken Lawanda, who is a current board member of ARBO and also a former board member of this California State Board of Optometry, and Lisa Fennell, who is the executive director of ARBO within our public attendees today. So I don't know if we want to perhaps Dr. Wong offer them an opportunity to provide any of their own updates when we open for public comment as well.
That sounds like a great idea.
And with that, are there any questions from the board before we do move to public comment?
Okay, well then let's go ahead and move to public comment. And if we could open public comment and invite Ms. Fennell and Dr. Lawanda to make any statements or comments, that would be great.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you wish to make a comment, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access that Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, this is the moderator. If you're unable to see the Q&A, Ms. Fennell wrote, no comments at this time. ARBO is looking forward to a meeting on December 1st.
Great, thank you. And are there any other comments from the public, Madam Moderator?
I have one from Ken Lawanda saying I'm available to discuss with Lisa Fennell. So Ken, I can unmute your microphone if you wish to speak. All right, Ken, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Yes, I'm on the board of directors with ARBO and will definitely be interested to have the meetings with Lisa Fennell as well as the board with regards to any of those questions that you may have regarding NBEO as well as ARBO. So I will be available at any time. I'm also the liaison to the California State Board. So if there are any issues or so that the board members or Shara would like to be able to share, I'm more than happy to pass it along to our ARBO board. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
And if I may, Madam President, just extend a thank you both to Lisa and to Ken, who, as I said, we have independently engaged over the last several months since our last board meeting. So we have had at least one, if not two discussions and a pretty lengthy back and forth by email. So we do want to very much thank ARBO and both from Ken and Lisa, their willingness to meet with us and answer our questions and pull together resources and the attendance and participation of NBEO as well in order to further explore the questions that have been brought by board members. So thank you both.
I agree. And Sid and I are both on the work group or the task force, and we will be meeting with on December 1st with both of them. So thank you. So let's go ahead and close public comment.
This is the moderator. A quick question. Are we responding to raised hands from the public?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, I have a raised hand from Doug Major. Doug, I will request to unmute your microphone. All right, you are unmuted.
Can you hear me?
This is the moderator. We can hear you, but oh, and you just muted yourself, so I'll have to unmute again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Perfect. This is Doug Major. I'm the one that's been working on the children access issue. Just to give you a quick update, at the Academy meeting, we got together with representatives from each of the schools of optometry in Stanford and creating an ad hoc access to children group, pretty much the same that they've done at Massachusetts. And we're using Bruce Moore, who established that in Massachusetts. And so we're still working with Children's Now to establish an access to children's care outreach And just to let the board know that we're still working on that, and it's still a problem in California with 5.4 million children with limited access to care. And any questions, I'll try to just be aware that that's happening. And we're working, again, closely with MCHAP. And the key thing is Children's Now, great advocacy group that will be an adjunct instead of the self-serving appearance of the COA or the board, the optometry.
All right, this is the moderator, and it appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to item number 7 on the agenda, which is discussion and possible action on decision not to proceed on implementation of AB 443 regulatory rulemaking.
Thank you, board members. This presentation will be handled by Mark Johnson, our policy analyst. And just checking as well, we have also promoted Danny Rogers, who is our regulatory counsel, and she will be a part of this discussion as well. Mark?
Good morning, everyone. Agenda item 7 is regarding our AB 443 rulemaking package. You all may remember that 443 was the bill that authorized a TPA licensed optometrist to administer immunizations. This rulemaking package has been in process. It did have a 45-day comment period earlier this year. And in October, the governor signed AB 691 as an urgency measure, which is in law now. And this bill expands the authorization for a TPA certified optometrist to perform immunizations, as well as also the COVID vaccine. It also, in law, establishes the application fee and the text of a immunization certification application with the board. So given this bill is in law and in effect, we do not need these regulations anymore, and we just will need to have the board vote to not proceed with the implementation of 443, and then we will file the appropriate notices and post them on our website and let all of the interested parties know. And there is a suggested motion at the bottom of the memo if you wish to proceed with this. That's it. Thank you. Dr. Wong, I think you're muted.
I'm just sitting here talking to myself. Thank you, Mark. Let's see now. Are there any comments from board members?
None.
If there's no comments, could someone make a motion to not proceed with AB 443?
Hi, this is Sid, and I move to approve a notice of decision not to proceed for the implementation of Assembly Bill 443 regulatory rulemaking pursuant to Government Code Section 11347, and direct the executive officer to file the notice with the Office of Administrative Law and post to the board's website.
This is Glenn, I second.
Thank you. Ms. Linden, if we could have a vote.
Dr. Wong?
Aye.
Member Moribelmi? Member Brandvine?
Excuse me, we need public comment. Sorry.
So sorry.
Jumping the gun yet again. Madam Secretary, Madam Moderator, if we could open up the Q&A for public comment, please.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. And now, Ms. Linden, if you could do a roll call vote, please.
Great. Dr. Wong,
Aye.
Member Mordomi, Member Brandwein,
Aye.
Dr. Garcia.
Aye.
Wait, I'm sorry. Could I need each member to take a vote. So if you could just pause for a second after you call each name, I need them to say aye or nay.
Member Brandwein,
Aye.
Dr. Garcia,
Aye.
Dr. Kawaguchi,
Aye.
Member Linden, aye. Dr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Member Sims,
Aye.
Dr. Turetsky,
Aye.
and Member Yu. Okay. That's 8 ayes. The motion passes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I should be saying that or if you should. I'm sorry.
If you could give us the count for ayes and nays, that would be great.
Okay. So that's 8 ayes and 0 nays.
Okay, so we have motion passes, and Mr. Mordomi and Mr. Yu are both absent currently for this vote.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and go on with item number 8 on the agenda, discussion and possible action to initiate a rulemaking regarding continuing optometric education and possibly amend or adopt Title 16 CCR Section 1536.
So members, we have been looking at our continuing education regulations for quite some time. Of course, had COVID bringing up new insights and new thoughts. And we recently brought this to you as just before we submitted, I apologize, let me back up. We discussed this with you in August, and then we're prepared to submit the package in September. We did so just prior to the Ledge Reg Committee meeting, and we are now at the first round of comments from DCA Regulations Council. So what you have in front of you today is a version that incorporates the recommendations from DCA Regulatory Council in order to move forward a clean and appropriate and authorized regulatory package to agency and then to the Office of Administrative Law. Mark and Danny, if you would like to give additional comments, please do so.
Okay, thanks, Shara. Yeah, so this is just one step in the approval process. It's just the initial feedback from legal counsel as to some changes. The changes, if you'll just look at the attachment, which has the approved text, you'll see that the highlights are in yellow, and there are comments which just explain the change to each section. And I would probably just quickly highlight section C1, which was just it was just essentially rewritten by legal to just spell out a little bit better what a test means, whether it be an interactive test or through self-assessment testing. Okay. Section C1-4, sorry, let's get this a little bit off here. Section C4, thank you, just adds the word live as opposed to in person, which is just to reflect attendance at a day's board meeting, whether it be in person or online. They'll just be live and they'll be in attendance. Section D1B was just written for a little bit better clarity. Section E1, legal had raised the concerns that listing only the Western Association of Western Accreditation of Schools and Colleges, I'm sorry if I don't know the exact term, and had suggested that we list out any accredited agency recognized by the U.S. Department of Education, so we've made that change. E3 just adding, putting the word course back in. So it'll be courses in or activities. You'll see that or activities is underlined because courses is actually already in the text. So we're just keeping that in there just to reflect both processes the code uses. Any questions so far? Okay. Subsection F just has a couple of changes to reflect the Form CEO1. Just a list and just a reminder that a fee needs to be included and just some cleanup and updated references. Subsection G1, this is a section that was just relocated. Parts of it were originally in F3, but have been relocated to 1 just to kind of for better overall clarity and flow. We did add in a couple of definitions, which are listed on Form CEO1 and also are reflective of statutes, the child abuse detection, ethics, elder abuse detection, pharmacology, etc. So those have been added in, and also that completely reflects Form CEO1. And we want to have the two obviously in complete sync. Section G5 was just relocated down there. This is the section that prohibits the provider from using letterhead, seal, or logo. 6 was added by legal counsel just to match the live and interactive question that is on the Form CEO1 so that the board can understand what kind of participatory instruction is being provided during the course. And that is it for new changes to the text. I will then quickly just go over the Form CEO1, which is beneath that. That's attachment 2. And again, highlights additions that we're making are in yellow. You will notice that the biggest change is just reorganizing and adding categories in the course category section. And this fully reflects the text that is written in section 1536 G1. We have also added just some additional information just to reflect that a provider might be a company and may have a point of contact. Any questions so far? Okay. On the second page of the Form CEO1, we just have 2 new questions listed. The question about the definition based on section 1530.62, is it a live and interactive course, yes or no? And also as listed in section G5, does the provider agree not to use the board's letterhead, seal or logo on any course certificates, advertising, et cetera, et cetera. The last change that I would just note here is the live and interactive question. What measures of participatory interaction apply to your course? This was just rewritten by counsel for clarity so that the applicants, the providers can just better denote for the practice and education committee what kind of instruction is occurring. And then the last note is just that a little box to reflect that some instructors may not have a healing arts license, might be a PhD or something. So that's it. We will, if we have approval for these changes, hopefully today, we will then, what will happen is I will then immediately take this back and continue the rulemaking package with legal counsel, make some minor revisions to the initial statement of reasons and the public notice, which is with counsel right now, and then it will advance on hopefully to the director's office, and then eventually we can give it to the Office of Administrative Law for posting. So the process will definitely continue, and this is one of my highest priorities to complete right now is this package. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you for all of your work on this. This has been an ongoing project of our board for the last, 2 years or so. So appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wong.
Do any board members have any comments? Oh, I see a hand by Dr. Turetsky.
Thank you. Comment I've made before. So for child and adult abuse detection, the folks who do this type of continuing education training are not going to submit something to the board to get approval for that specific training. How can we, because it is an important issue, how can you get somebody that does this type of training who's not going to submit something to the board, how can it be considered as board approved, or is there some way of going about this that would allow folks to take this training and get credit if there's no specific thing filed with the board?
So that is the avenue, unless it is a course that is provided by one of our optometry schools or is a COPE approved course. The only other avenue is to submit a course approval to the board in this manner. That is part of the change of this form, is really making it clear which areas the legislature has denoted are important for practitioners to receive continuing education, on which to receive continuing education. And our hope is that as providers who are currently doing more traditional optometry training begin to use this form, they will see that there are other areas. There might by chance be collaboration between those who are doing training specifically on elder abuse or on child abuse. And so really through kind of that, we know how to go about the process of optometry, and we need to bring in a subject matter expert on these specific areas of ethics. We hope to begin to create more or encourage more content that speaks specifically to these, but it is either a COPE approved course, a course provided by our universities, and then also too, I apologize, also continuing education offered through the societies of the state association. So, and then approval by the board. So those are the 4 ways in which someone who offers continuing education content on elder abuse or child abuse could begin to present this content to optometry licensees.
Okay, one more question. I'm looking at the form. Because it's going to become a more prominent issue, I think, in the next few years, if somebody's interested in doing a presentation on cultural competency, would that fit under patient care management or ethics in the practice of optometry? Could that be considered as one of those? So if somebody did have a course like that, they could get it approved by the board?
So as we are working through our strategic plan, this is certainly an area in which the board has identified needed work. The Practice and Education Committee, as well as the Consumer Protection and Outreach Committees, are both working on plans and investigations to figure out how the board should approach cultural competency for its licensees, or creating a more culturally competent patient care environment for consumers. It certainly would be welcomed if there were someone willing to provide course content. Because we do not have our parameters set, it really would be a more intense process than simply the submission of this form. It would really come to a need to meet with the Practice and Education Committee in order to understand how that content would fit into the practice of optometry specifically. But there is a way by this form to begin that discussion, and then also reminding everyone that the board has prioritized addressing inequity for patients, and developing a way in which at some point perhaps there would be a particular call out on this sheet within our regulation for that subject matter.
Okay, thanks.
I have a follow-up question to Dr. Turetsky's question for Shara. And so that is under section C4-6. No, C6. that's correct. It talks about CME, and I don't recall what category 1 is, but related to his question around child or elder abuse, would that be under category 1 for CME?
I will admit that I have not delved into exactly what the CME category 1 is. We simply, when submitted by a licensee, we simply ensure that it is in fact accredited by the continuing education institution for physicians and surgeons. It may be that within that category 1A that there are in fact courses that address elder abuse, child abuse, or racial inequities. And then, of course, we would allow those to count for the required hours of continuing education for our licensees.
Okay, thank you. My second comment is under C1, which is on page 1 of the document. And it's the last sentence of the first paragraph in C1, which talks about through self-assessment testing, that at the very end of it is where I have a question mark, and that is an explanation of why the answer chosen by the educational provider was the correct answer. I believe, and my fellow professional members on the board could confirm this or not, but some of the self-study tests, they will provide the correct answer back, but there isn't necessarily always a why, because it was already embedded in the information that we were provided or in the text earlier. And so I think that with that statement, we might be limiting what self-study courses could be taken just with that last part, an explanation of why. I think the correct answer should be good enough because a participant can go back if they need to the text or the information, the recorded information or whatever it is, to confirm why.
Yeah, I agree with Glenn. There's a lot of online courses where you take tests and they do give you the correct answers, but they definitely don't give you an explanation. You have to, it's on your own that you have to go back and reread the material to find the correct answer.
Excellent. Danny, if you could by chance, Danny Rogers, our regulatory counsel, is on the call with us. If you could speak to the rationale for adding this text and how it might be adjusted or not adjusted according to the comments just made by board members.
Good morning. This is Danny Rogers, regulatory counsel. Insofar as doing an alternative to this to reflect board members' comments, we could place a sentence simply after with correct answers and strike the latter point. I don't think we had any particular idea in mind by requiring this, only just for the benefit of the student that they understand why the answer is correct. This is not a necessary legal requirement, so we could abbreviate it after answers. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Glenn. And thank you, Danny. Any other comments from board members?
Hi, this is Sid. I have a comment and a suggestion, please. The comment is on the form application itself. We have a typo, and it's on the first page, detection, elder abuse detection. We're missing an E, D-E-T-E-C, please, T-I-O-N. And then recommending that after $50, we put USD. There's a lot of currencies now that are being accepted, and just want to protect the board since this is a process and a rather long, lengthy process, so we don't have to update the form in the near term. So just something to consider. Unless we want cryptocurrencies and other things as well, just bringing it to our attention.
I don't believe Breeze could currently handle those sorts of currencies. Danny, is there an issue in our enacting those two changes, the spelling correction on the form and then indicating that it's US dollars after the mandatory fee?
No issue whatsoever. I would just indicate the interlineation and the motion indicate that you are approving the form as edited.
Thank you.
This is Jeff Garcia. I just have a comment, or actually a question. So as the board considers possibly aligning more towards ARBO's classifications, the ones that we have currently don't necessarily do that. Will there be room to make those adjustments if necessary down the road?
There certainly will. And I think that part of our strategic plan initiative, our objective to look at inequity, I think that is also a time where we can then, because that will require a statutory change. So we could go back, unless of course we do look at it being considered within ethics in the practice of optometry, which is currently within statute. So we would want to make sure with legal counsel, there would be an opportunity to revise these. It might be further clarification within the regulation if it is deemed that we have authority from the statute in order to include those specific areas. I know that we've also discussed human trafficking. So certainly as we as a board get our hands around those issues and understand more how we want optometry and optician licensees to understand that content, we can go back either to regulation or statute if needed in order to include those categories and to align with the ARBO or COPE categories that might also be of interest to the board.
Okay, thank you. I do remember having this discussion with the PEC committee with ARBO's classifications and thinking possibly to utilize the ethics classification to incorporate child abuse, trafficking, elder abuse, those types of subjects, just to make it a little bit cleaner so we didn't have multiple specific subjects.
So we have been counseled for our regulatory counsel that the form should match what is in statute. And so in fact, we would need to have the statute amended in order to present a form that did not include those categories. So there was the hope that we could present a cleaner form, but we have to stick to what our statutory authority is. And as those are called out specifically, that is where we will need to stay.
Thanks, Shara.
And it's Sid with one more, just a question. Is the state moving towards gender neutral language? And if so, do we need to pick that up throughout this document, i.e. where we say he or she? I'll let the state decide.
I believe, and Danny, perhaps you could back me up or give a little more context on this. There are some state departments that are moving to a they, a very gender neutral, others that are moving to a he or she. And so I don't know, Danny, if this department specifically in our regulations has come to a decision on how it addresses that issue.
Hi, everyone. This is Danny Rogers again. Yes, generally we are following the policy of ACR 260 to make language gender neutral. So we would recommend that when we are going through regulations for some other reason, we can certainly take it upon ourselves to make them gender neutral as well. That said, it is suggested by the legislature only. It's not required, so it remains up to you, but it is our recommendation that we change it.
Thank you for that clarification.
Hi, Sid, this is Mark. In response to your comment, I just went through the proposed text real quick. It appears there's only one location where he or she is listed. That's in I2. We could very much change that from he or she to they to match ACR 260 if desired.
What is any comments from the board about changing he or she on item I2 to gender neutral they?
This is Jeff Garcia. I propose that we do make that one minor adjustment.
This is Sandra Sims. I second that motion.
Do we need public comment, Shara?
So what we would need is a full motion to approve the regulatory language and form as discussed and edited here today, and then a second for that motion, and then a need for public comment. Yes.
Okay. So if I could, so I guess before I ask for that motion, does anyone have any other comments for changing item I to the he or she and changing it to gender neutral they?
A point of clarification, can that be grandfathered into the overall motion for accepting all edits or changes versus voting on each edit or change? I see a shaking head come up.
Yes. We have not had a full motion yet in order to approve the text as edited. So this edit and any others that we discuss in the next few minutes could be added to a single motion approving the entire package as edited here today during our discussion.
Thank you. So if there are no other comments from the board, is it Mark or Danny? Could we go ahead and change the he or she on item I2 to gender neutral they?
We
And
will
then
make those changes. Yes.
Thank you. And are there any other comments from board members? All right, if I could go ahead and get a motion to accept all the changes and
This is Jeff Garcia. I'll move to approve proposed changes to Title 16, Section 1536, and the Form CE01 incorporated by reference into section as presented and discussed here today, and delegate authority to the executive officer to make non-substantive changes as needed before submission to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review. And if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to set the matter for hearing.
And can I get a second?
Sandra Sims, I second the motion.
Thank you. Madam Moderator, if you could open up the Q&A for our public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click on that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. All right, now it looks like we do have one request for comment from Christine Schultz. Christine, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. When I request to unmute your microphone, please click the Unmute Me button. All right, and you are unmuted.
Sorry about that. This is Christine Schultz, representing the California Optometric Association. I just have some questions about some of the recent changes that were made to the regulations under G1. Looking at ocular signs being added there, I believe, to the symptoms of systemic disease. I'm not sure, just kind of wondering why this was added specifically to ocular signs. It seems unnecessarily specific. You know, there are a lot of signs of systemic disease that might not be ocular, like A1C, which are clearly within the realm of scope of practice of optometry. Might be nitpicking, but I'm just bringing this up as a potential issue. Also, I'm concerned about adding the definition of clinical optometry there because it's really specific, using of specific devices or instruments in the practice of optometry. What I'm not sure if this would, for example, include immunizations, the immunization courses or courses about immunizations, would that be included or not? To me, it seems more broad language would be more appropriate here, but I realize that you're dealing with attorneys, so not sure if those are some of the issues that could be addressed or clarified in this regulation before moving forward. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. We'll move on to our next individual who has requested public comment. Individual identified as Ruby Garcia. Ruby, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. When I request to unmute your microphone, please click the Unmute Me button when the prompt appears. All right.
Hi, this is Ruby from the California State Society from Opticians. I wanted just to get some clarity. Would this just apply to optometrists, or would this also apply to licensed SLDs and CLDs, is what I'm looking for.
This is Natalia, the lead licensing analyst for the board. It would only apply to optometrists.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator, and it appears that that was all our requests for comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you. So do we want to have discussions about item G1B and G1D that Christine Schultz just brought up? G1B is ocular signs or symptoms of systemic related disease. So she brought up A1C. So for our non-professional members, A1C is a way to determine blood sugar in our diabetic patients. And that is a non-ocular sign. So that is true that there are definitely, there's definitely data or signs and symptoms that optometrists use that are non-ocular that we use to sort of check to see how systemic diseases are affecting the eye.
Maybe it could just be flipped. So systemic related disease related to ocular systems. I'm not really sure, but I see her point, and I agree with it.
How about if we say ocular and or systemic signs and symptoms and related disease?
Okay.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Perhaps.
Sure. Ocular and systemic signs and symptoms of related disease. It just widens it to be ocular and systemic findings. So it doesn't make it so narrow.
I apologize. Staff and legal counsel did have discussion and a back and forth about this particular item. I don't know if Danny or Mark want to give comment on language that was considered before or necessary components of the item so that we're staying within the intent of Regulations Council while also correctly, identifying the educational courses that are applicable to optometrists.
Morning again, this is Danny Rogers. I think the attempt here was to mirror the categories of continuing education that are in Business and Professions Code 3059. And that section at E says that 35 of the 50 hours of continuing education shall be on the diagnosis, treatment, and management of ocular disease in any combination of the following areas. One is glaucoma, one is ocular infection, one is ocular inflammation, one is topical steroids, the fifth is systemic medication, and the sixth is the risk of addiction associated with Schedule II drugs. So we want to make sure that we're consistent with the statutory categories. So I would defer to the subject matter experts insofar as whether what they're proposing are within those categories. I can send those to Ms. Murphy if she'd like to project them somehow in the meeting, but I just want to make sure that we stay consistent with those categories. If that helps.
Comments from anybody else?
So we'll have to get this language either leave it as it is or revised before.
Or it goes to agency now.
Yeah.
I like Dr. Garcia's suggestion of ocular and systemic signs or symptoms of related disease, but that's because it does make it a little bit more, it makes it more broad.
I think it still falls within the intent of our language. I don't think it really strays far from that. I think it's more accurate.
Dave and Glenn, as professional members, what do you think?
I'm happy with the modification that Jeff just proposed. I think that pretty much covers everything that needs to be covered.
Shara, just to interject, this is Danny Rogers again. I sent you those categories in case you'd like to project them for board members. I don't know if I would have the ability to do that.
Did you email them? This is Jeff Garcia.
Give me just a moment.
Okay.
Yes.
I apologize so as to not project all of my screen. Give me a moment just to close down my windows.
This is the moderator. While we're waiting, I do have Mark Morodomi on. And Mark, can I get a quick mic check from you?
I was on mute. Sorry. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm glad you have a mic check.
Wonderful. I can hear you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
And then moderator, if you would make it possible for me to share content.
Sure. Let me pass over presenter role to you, and then you can share your screen or application.
Thank you very much.
And Uni, if you could just make a note that Mark has now joined us.
Okay, give me just one moment. I apologize.
Just for clarification, what I expect Shara will project is the areas that I just sent her, and 35 of the required 50 must be in any combination of these following areas: diagnosis, treatment, and management of ocular disease in any combination of the following areas.
So this is the list which appears within statute.
Well, systemic medication does apply to systemic disease because that's the reason why they're taking the systemic medication. So,
Mark, could you by chance take a look back at the original language we had here, or some of the iterations that we discussed over the last few weeks?
Candidate systemic related disease, and my concern in drafting that was that it was potentially ambiguous to the reader, and I think that's why we tweaked it as we did. But in the process, as one of the commenters noted, we might have made it too specific. So, or I further tweak it.
Give me just a minute. I'm just trying to see. Slowly loading up.
And perhaps Dr. Wong, there might be some public comment that would be of interest in regards to these categories. If perhaps we'd like to open that up as we're waiting for Mark to bring up the other iterations.
that's a great idea. Madam Moderator, if we could go ahead and open up public comment and Q&A, or Q&A for public comment, please.
Sure. Shara, I'm going to steal back presenter role just temporarily. All right. So at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. It looks like we do have one request for comment from Christine Schultz. Christine, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Give me 1 second while I get my timer up. Okay, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Great.
All right, you are unmuted.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. This is again Christine Schultz with the California Optometric Association. So I'm looking at the statute, and it's the 3059 And on E, it says 35 of the 50 hours of CE shall be on the diagnosis and treatment in any of these categories. But that's only the 35 of the 50 hours that are required. And in what you're doing here is, in the regulation, is making all of the CE to these limited categories, which I don't think is the intent of the law. Does that make sense? So there's no reason to limit to just those categories under the statute.
This is Danny Rogers. You're correct, absolutely. I think this is but one factor to consider whether it will be approved by the board. So this is just one among many factors. It's not dispositive. It's simply recognizing that there are certain courses that are favored for 35 hours of the CE. So it's not really framed as a basis on which to deny approval of the course. It's simply factored into the equation.
Okay, well, it goes back to my comment. I think the concern here is that if you're really specific about like what clinical optometry is, it has to be for the specific device. I don't see that in the statute anywhere.
Mark, so in going back to just, we've staff and legal have worked this fairly, thoroughly in the last month or so. But the concern was raised originally when with our text, we had listed out systemic related disease. And so, that there was legal had suggested, we should define that because the term is not found in statute or regulation. So we had worked up just kind of a typical medical term for diseases in the body, and made it more specific to ocular, obviously, so it is consistent with 3059 and what is treated. And then with clinical optometry, again, a comment was made that by a reviewer that what does this mean? What does clinical optometry mean? And so we had come up with the use of specific devices or instruments in the practice of optometry, just to make it a little more specific.
Mark, this is Jeff Garcia. I think in general, to be less specific would probably be better. Clinical optometry doesn't necessarily have to involve a device or an instrument. It can involve medical judgment. So I'm not sure why we need to put those items in the parentheses even on that line.
Okay. So Danny, any thoughts if we just limit it to clinical optometry and move within the parentheses for proposed subsection D? Would that be okay?
I think originally we added parenthetical information to be more specific and withstand a clarity challenge by OAL. But based on the professional expertise here today, if you feel that the term as listed as just clinical optometry is understandable by those in the field, then I think that's fine. The only caveat would be that we might be requested to define it further during the administrative process at OAL.
And if we were, this is Jeff Garcia, and if we were asked to define it, I would suggest defining it broader than specific devices or instruments in the practice of optometry. So
I think it's fine to leave it at clinical optometry for now and see what happens. We can always further define it later. It only means that we would have to go out to a 15-day modified text period if we were to change it in any fashion.
And certainly as part of OAL's review, they do check for these things. And certainly the discussion we've had today with the board, I mean, this will all be reflected in the minutes. This will be helpful to explain to the public and to OAL why we are putting it in and the reasons for not making it more specific or whatnot. So this discussion has been very helpful and will help us make our case for getting this regulation into law.
I have a comment or a question. So in G1, it does kind of have that inclusive language of including the following subject matters. It doesn't necessarily limit it to only those subject matters. And I see that subsection H, does kind of carry back to that broader language in section 3059E. So could that language be broad enough to kind of include other other topics that are not specifically mentioned in the prior subsections A through G?
This is Danny Rogers. Dan, absolutely. I agree that it can encompass other things. It's only an including, which is not limiting.
This is Jeff Garcia. So along those lines, could we then change that to say including but not limited to the following subject matter areas? If that's the intent, then we should maybe make it clearer.
We can do that. Sometimes OAL does not favor including but not limited to because it poses a clarity issue, but we can certainly try it and we can always dial it back if it's requested.
Okay, so we will make the change including but not limited to. Okay.
So I have a question related to what Ms. Sims just said. Was it Sims? Yes. Is that right? So subsection H, I didn't pick up on that point that it is very encompassing, and that reduces my concern about subsection B. And related to Jeff's suggestion, I know historically attorneys don't like that kind of language because then it broadens it too much. So Jeff, can you take a look at subsection H one more time to see if you think it satisfies your concerns around it being broad enough?
Yeah, so I agree. So then having read that, then I think that including the following subject matter is okay. But I would still like to see the parenthetical information on D removed.
And then are we okay with B as is, or do we want to change it to Jeff's suggestion of ocular and systemic signs or symptoms of related disease?
This is Jeff Garcia. Again, I think it just makes more sense to me as a clinician to say ocular and systemic signs of systemic and related disease rather than the way it's written. It's a little broader, but I think it reflects more accurately what we do.
I'm sorry, Dr. Garcia, it's Mark. One more time, can you just read it to me? I'm just going to type it in as you go. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Ocular and systemic signs or symptoms of related disease.
Symptoms of related disease?
Correct.
Ocular signs, ocular and systemic signs or of symptoms of related disease?
Or symptoms.
Or symptoms.
Of systemic related disease.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is the moderator. Looks like there's no further requests for public comment. Did you want me to still keep that open or?
Nope, let's go ahead and close public comment then.
Right.
Okay, so are there any other comments regarding any of these changes for section G1, A through H? No. Are there any other comments regarding? Are there any other comments regarding 1536 and proposed changes? No. So we have a motion, we have a second. Ms. Linden, if you could go ahead for and do roll call for
Madam.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Madam President, we had a motion that was seconded, and then there were additional changes made. Or it sounds like there are those two additional changes that are desired to be made. So I think at this point we will need to move to amend that motion to add the two items.
Okay.
And then that would need a second we'd take public comment and we'd vote to amend the motion, and then we would vote on the original motion.
Right.
I know that's a little cumbersome, but I want to make sure that we have a clear record that we're including those changes as well.
Could we perhaps withdraw the original motion, have staff state what the edits are in total, have a new motion proposed and seconded, open up public comment, and then do a vote?
That sounds great. Okay,
And
so
does the motion maker and the member who seconded, do they agree with that course of action?
Yeah, this is Jeff Garcia.
Yes.
I agree.
And this is Sandra Sims. I agree.
Okay, we can withdraw the motion then, and you can resubmit it, whoever would like to make that original motion with the
So Mark,
changes.
I think what just for everybody's clarity too, and also the rulemaking record and everything, Mark, if you could go through the edits that have been discussed and approved by the board today, or agreed upon by the board today, then I think a board member could make a motion feeling comfortable that all of the edits have been captured correctly, and that motion then could be seconded, open for public comment, and voted upon.
Fabulous. Okay. So in the text, G1, we're adding the words including but not limited to prior to the word. So
I'm sorry, Mark, if you could start from the beginning of the edits that we've discussed here today.
I am. This is the first changes in G that I have. Okay, so in G1, we're just adding the words including but not limited to.
I'm sorry, Mark, am I being heard? This is Shara.
Yeah, hi Shara. Am I coming through okay?
This is the moderator. I can hear both Mark and Shara. Shara, are you able to hear me?
I am able to hear you now, yes.
Okay, are you able to hear Mark?
Hi.
Hi there. Sorry, Mark, if you could, I just want to make sure that if you could start from the beginning of the document and make sure that we have agreement on the edits that have been discussed here today before the board makes a motion based on those edits. Thank you.
Of course. So the first change in the text I have is to G1. And the first edit is in subsection 1. We add the words including but not limited to. In section G1B, we are rewriting the term to say ocular and systemic signs of systemic related disease. In D, we are removing the parentheses and just the term will be clinical optometry. In I2, we are deleting he or she and adding they to be consistent with ACR 260. And then on the form CEO1, we're going to fix the typo of detection and then also add the letters USD after $50 to denote United States currency as per Sid's suggestion. Those are all the changes that I have.
Okay, so a couple points, because I don't think that matches what I understood. So going higher in the document, I had made a suggested edit to C1 to eliminate the second half of the last sentence. So eliminating an explanation of why the answer chosen by the educational provider was the correct answer.
Right, so we're just going to end that with correct answers, period.
That's my suggestion, yes. And then based on the discussion between Dr. Garcia and I, and Dr. Garcia, you can chime in if you're in disagreement, but I thought that we agreed that we would not add including, but not limited to.
That is correct. After reading subsection H, that wasn't necessary. So it's going to stay the way it is, including the following subject matter areas as written.
Okay, my apologies. So we are not having the including but not limited to. We're just going to have including, and then deletion as per Dr. Kawaguchi's suggestion to C1 of the last sentence.
Can I also add one comment? I just noticed that you could also make the language in 1536B At the end of that first sentence, it also says his or her license. So that could also be changed today.
Good catch, thank you.
And then just for clarification on B, I think it was correct, but it's ocular or systemic signs or symptoms of systemic related disease.
Yeah, I think, Mark, you just had ocular and systemic signs, and symptoms was not included. So there should be symptoms as well.
Okay.
And just to chime in that, we'll also need to make that change in the form, Mark. So we'll get to consensus language and be sure to change that within the text and then also on the form.
Okay, will do.
Are there any other comments from board members? So if I could get a new motion for 1536.
I just want to make sure before the motion occurs, I just want to make sure that Dr. Garcia believes that we and Dr. Wong believe that we have captured that category correctly. If Mark, if you can read again what you have. Mark, are you still with us?
This is a moderator. See, his microphone is unmuted, but I'm not hearing any audio from him either.
Checking in through has been a problem with Mark's audio. Board members, if you don't mind, I just want to make sure that we capture. So yeah, Mark's gonna have to log out and log back in. Will you please just repeat the correct category?
Are you talking to us, Shara?
Yes, please. I'm sorry. I want to. It sounded as though the last time Mark repeated to you the category, or I apologize, B for G1B, that it did not include all of the correct words. So I'm hoping that we're looking at ocular and systemic signs.
Or Dr. Garcia, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have written down ocular and systemic signs or symptoms of related disease.
That will work, yes.
Okay, so one more time, Shar. Ocular and systemic signs or symptoms of related disease.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. And if then a member would be willing to make a motion that includes the edits as we've discussed here today. You can go back to the suggested motion within the memo and simply say in the section as edited here today, if there is a member who would like to make that motion.
Hi, this is Joseph Pruitt. Can I ask a quick question? And I'm sorry if I missed it, but for G1D, you are removing the language in the parentheses following clinical optometry?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is Jeff Garcia. I move to approve proposed changes to Title 16, Section 1536, and the Form CE01, incorporated by reference into the section as presented and discussed here today, and delegate authority to the executive officer to make non-substantive changes as needed before submission to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review. If no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to set the matter for hearing.
This is member Sandra Sims, and I second the motion.
Madam Moderator, if you could open up the Q&A for public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. And then while I wait for members of the public to indicate if they wish to make a public comment, I just want to do a quick mic check with Mark Johnson now that we have him back in. Oh no, seeing his microphone's unmuted, but I'm not hearing any audio. Okay, I'll try to troubleshoot with Mark on Teams to see if we can get that resolved. In the meantime, it doesn't look like there were any requests for public comment. So would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Okay, and Ms. Linden, if you could do a roll call vote for this motion.
Okay. Member Brandvine?
Aye.
Dr. Garcia?
I vote aye.
Dr. Kawaguchi?
Aye.
Member Linden? Aye. Dr. Pruitt?
Aye.
Member Sims?
Aye.
Dr. Turetsky?
Aye.
Member Yu is absent. Member Moridomi?
Because I only appeared at the meeting midway through the discussion, I'm going to abstain on this particular item.
Okay. And Dr. Wong?
Aye.
Okay, so that is 8. So that's 8 ayes, 1 abstention, and 1 absent.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. If I could suggest maybe a 5-minute break, bio break, we can reconvene at, it's 10:50, maybe at 11:05. Yep. Okay. So if we could just have a a screen that comes up saying we are taking a short break, and we will come back at 11:05 a.m.
This is the co-moderator. I will pull that up as soon as possible.
Great. Thank you very much.
Madam President, this is Michael Kenotes, your legal counsel for today. Just a friendly reminder that when we come back from breaks, we should take roll to make sure that we've maintained quorum.
Thank you very much for the reminder.
Thank you.
So just looking at everyone's videos, I don't see Glenn or I see Sandra, so it's just Glenn.
I'm here.
Yes, I see Sandra, and then I'm just waiting for Dr. Kawaguchi. Then I think we can go ahead and have a.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here? Oh, you're not on my screen, huh? All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. Uni, if you could go ahead and do another roll call for us so that we could establish quorum.
Sure. Member Brandvine?
Here.
Dr. Garcia?
Present.
Dr. Kawaguchi?
Here.
Member Linden is present. Dr. Pruitt?
Present.
Member Sims?
Present.
Dr. Turetsky?
I'm here.
Member Yu is Absent. And Member Moridomi
Here.
and Dr. Wong.
Present.
Okay. So we have 9 in attendance.
So we have quorum. Thank you. And let's go ahead and move on to item number 9 on the agenda. It is our DCA update.
Thank you so much, members, for your attention to this item. It seems that a lot of the 37 boards, bureaus, and commissions try to fit their last meeting of the year into this week before Thanksgiving. So unfortunately, we don't have Carrie Holmes with us, who usually presents the department update. But within your packets, you do have a written report from Board and Bureau Services and the Executive Office of Department of Consumer Affairs. We do have our new budget analysts and new budget manager with us, though, to review our budget office data. And I do believe that we have materials included within the PowerPoint so that they are available to public and to members. So Bill and Renee, if you would please begin your presentation.
Thank you, Madam President and Coordinator. This is Bill Lloyd. I'm the budget analyst with the budget office. And I was going to go through the fund condition, if we have that available. To display, is that?
I believe it'll be the next slide. There we go.
Okay, so this is the revenues for the board. You can see that the board is estimated with a budget of revenue about $2.7 million. Year-to-date spending is just over $600,000. The projection to the end of the year, we projected the revenue would come in about $2.6 million, which is about $50,000 short. But again, this is only the first quarter, and so have a long way to go. Are there any questions on the revenue?
This is Mark Moridomi. Why are we projected to be $50,000 short, or what can happen in the upcoming year that could resolve that?
That's an excellent question. The projections are just based on the first 3 months and how they relate to what was budgeted. So it's just a portion of what the budget is left over the next 9 months, and then based on what we received for the first 3 months. The second part of the question, maybe my manager, Renee Milano, might have a bit more information on that part.
Of the shortfall that we're currently projecting is based off of the preliminary projections. So our beginning budget balance is based off those beginning year projections. And there can always be a little bit of flexibility on those totals. Again, as Bill had stated, this is a first quarter, and most of these projections are based solely on those 3 months. And as the board might be aware, that those can fluctuate depending on certain times of the year. We might have higher or lower. So as we get closer to the year, we'll get much more firmer numbers.
I mean, historically, are our revenues, say, seasonal?
No, but there's always that opportunity for some flexibility throughout the year. And I apologize. We could do a much more thorough breakout on maybe more of a quarterly to get a sense of that. But I do not have firm information on that right now at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything else that we have for item number 9?
Yeah, so there's expenditures, the projections I can go through, and then the fund condition.
Please.
Is there the slide of the expenditures? Yeah, here we go. So these are the expenditures as it relates to the present year in blue, the previous year, and I apologize, the headers aren't up top. And the green is past year, so that's last year. The first column is the budget, the budgeted amount, and the actual expenditures for fiscal year 2020 to 21. And then the blue column is the budgeted amount. The first column is the budget amount and the current expenditures. And then the projections are in the orange. And then the difference is the last column. And you can see that the expenditures so far are coming under the budget. The personal services are roughly $27,000 under the budgeted amount for the year to date. And the operating expenses and equipment are under, we're projecting about $700,000 for a total of about $805,000 of being under budget for what we expect for the year ending, which is a very good reversion to the general budget fund. So the expectations, even though we're projecting a few 50,000 under revenue, we are projecting about 800,000 under expenditures, and so that's a very good balance there.
$805,000 sounds like a lot of like a lot of expenditures we're not spending. What's, if I'm reading that, if I understand you correctly, what
the biggest portion is in the CP services internal. This is the AG and OAH expenditure line. And you can see also last year there was a large savings there. And the overall totals from last year, the savings was about 600,000. So it's not extremely different from previous years of savings.
If I may, Bill?
Yes.
This is Shara, Executive Officer. So there is a very interesting and complicated pattern for the way in which we are funded for Attorney General fees and for fees to bring our cases to the to administrative hearing. And the last year, what we saw was very much COVID impacted, that we were not bringing less practice, less claims brought to those entities. This is a very early projection that will change significantly after the January 10th budget. That is very flexible what we will actually receive for those budget areas. And it is also, our last year was not indicative of what we generally spend on Attorney General fees. And we know that there was an increase a few years ago. So although this might look like we're flush with cash in order to do whatever we please, you know, I'd love to, staff, but public interest campaigns. But this actually is a very, very early estimate, one, of what we will receive finally in the budget, and two, what we actually will spend on Attorney General and Office of Administrative Hearing fees.
Thank you, Shara. That makes sense. When you say Attorney General and Office Administration fees, you know, I get it. It goes up and down based on the nature of the cases we have. So I know we had a big case last year. We may have other big cases this year. So it remains to be seen. I forgot to welcome Mr. Lloyd as our budget analyst. Welcome to our board. Your predecessor Bikram did an excellent job for us, so you have a high bar to meet. But welcome.
And I appreciate that, and you know, I look forward to providing any assistance I can to the board as needed.
Thank you.
Okay, and I appreciate that background on the Attorney General fees. The board was just presented to me about a month ago, and so I don't have those historical data, that inside knowledge that Bikram had. So I appreciate that historical reference there. And if there's no other comment on the expenditures, we can move to the fund condition. In the fund condition, we read this top to bottom and then left to right. And see the column in the middle there, it has a PY, that's the previous year, and the beginning balance. You can kind of read this as a snapshot in time, kind of what you get your checking statement every month. You have a beginning balance, you have revenues that come in, and expenditures that come out. The expenditures are on the second page. You go down, and then an ending balance at the end of the year. So we started 2020 to 21 with just over $2 million and took in revenue about 1.823, and then the total expenditures were 1,863,000 with a balance of 2,045,000 remaining. And then at the bottom there, you see that months in reserve. And what that means is that $2 million can fund the board for 8 months without any further revenues coming in. Say something's to happen and you have no revenues, the board could function for 8.7 months with its current balance at every year. And as you see the projections for the current year, the CY, and then we would go BY, which is our budget year 2022 to 23, and budget year +1, 23, 24. The fund balance stays very healthy with a significant amount of months in reserve. We consider 3 to 6 months healthy, so your board looks very healthy, and I don't see any specific problems to address at this time.
Thank you, Bill. I just want to add just one additional item. I do want to note to the board that you'll see a increase in the months in reserve that occurs in 22-23. Just to let you know, that indicates the merge of the RDO program fund. And so that's why you're seeing that jump there. Thank you.
This is Jeff Garcia. I have a question. On the months in reserve, is there a point at which our month in reserves could potentially be too high and raise red flags or anything?
Each board has a statutory limit on how many months in reserve. And I apologize, I don't have that information in front of me of what the statutory limit is where you can't go over. So some months it's maybe 12 months, 24 months. Some boards don't have one. And I apologize, I'm not sure if Renee has that information or your executive officer has it. But the real concern, is if you hit that maximum, you have to, take steps to alleviate it and stop, reduce fees, whatever there is to reduce that. But I assume that's kind of a better situation than seeing that months in reserve falling down to below 3, 2, 1, or even negative. So I think right now we're at a very good spot. And again, if Renee or your executive officer, Ms. Shara, has information on what your cap is, I'd be glad to have that.
Yeah, and I can absolutely provide that to the board at a later time. I do have that resource somewhere, just not in front of me. I want to make sure I give you guys accurate information. But I actually do not believe optometry has one of those restrictions, but we can certainly find that out. As to the board's health, we don't have any immediate concerns. I did want to flag, though, that a big chunk of our potential savings is due to salary savings for some newly established positions. And I just want to flag that because as those positions are being filled, there is the potential that our expenditures will increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. That's a great segue in to our reserve and the health of our reserve. We have, and Jeff, I'm glad that you weren't here for them, but the first 2 years of my tenure, we really struggled through bootstrapping. And we've made some great strides in making budget change proposals and in better allocating our funds to increase the health of our reserve. But we are also going through a building period where the last 2 years of our bootstrapping has been incredibly hard on our staff. And so we are going through a period of building in order to better handle our application flow, in order to better handle our length of time through the enforcement cycle. So although we're keeping a great, we're happy to be healthy, there is growth that needs to occur within our program so as to actually meet the needs of our program. And so you will see some judicious spending in the next few years that will bring that back into line with more about the 6 to 12 time frame, or 6 to 12 reserve month frame, which is where we're required to be.
Great job, Shara.
Are there any other questions regarding the fund condition?
Well, thank you very much, Bill. We really appreciate the update. And Renee.
My pleasure. Let me know if I can help in any other way.
And Shara, do we have anything else for item number 9 or for DCA update?
So sorry.
Are you muted?
Dealing with multiple buttons and multiple devices. No, the written report from executive office is available to the public and within the board's packet of materials. I'm not sure if we do want to take any public comment on the reports that have been given.
Madam Moderator, if you can open up the Q&A for public comment at this time.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. Oh, it looks like we do have a request from Christine Schultz. Christine, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. I will request to unmute your microphone now. All right, you are unmuted.
Great. This is Christine Schultz representing the California Optometric Association. Just want to express my appreciation for Shara and all of her staff. She's been working very hard and to address some of the issues that have been going on with new licensure issues as well. So I very much support the need for additional staff members to take care of board business. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Our next individual who has requested public comment is Ruby Garcia. Ruby, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. I will request to unmute your microphone now.
Yes, and thank you so much. And I do commend the board. I know they're overwhelmed, board staff. They're really overwhelmed with work. And as we are working with opticians, we're looking to see how we can help with interns. So somewhere we kind of need some guidance and see how that would help with the workload that the board staff has. And they do have a lot of work. We do expect that. We just want to see how we can maybe send some interns.
All right, this is the moderator. It appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Okay, so it looks like we have completed items under 9 of the agenda. Let's go ahead to go to item number 6 now. Discussion and possible action on legislative proposals and priorities for 2022.
Thank you, members. We have been really pleased to have an incredibly active Leg and Reg Committee chair in Dr. Turetsky. So Mark, myself, and Dr. Turetsky will be leading you through this item. Mark, do you want to start with your intro and then give Dr. Turetsky an opportunity to speak to the workings of the committee and the further negotiations or discussions that we've had?
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So what we have are just a couple of proposals for 2022, some changes to sections 655, 3040, and 3094, which Dr. Turetsky will be discussing shortly. The second thing that we had proposed for a permit is a special faculty permit. This was something that we had originally done back in 2019. We were not able to find an author for the bill last year and are looking to do it again in the next legislative year in 2022. The text is exactly the same as it was back in 2019. This would just allow foreign trained optometrists who teach at one of the 3 optometry schools in California to perform the full scope of practice within the clinic that they're employed. One of the suggestions that we had obtained some public comments and during the last legislative and regulatory committee meeting, possibly removing fees for optometry and optician licensees who are active duty military, not just recalled to duty reservists. Present law does allow for the waiver of renewal requirements and fees for reservists called to active duty, but it appears to be silent for active duty military stationed outside of California. It's my understanding that COA is developing a proposal around this, and we could potentially work with COA to develop language with them on this with the assistance of legal counsel. We all also are planning to do a presentation to the board in the spring on military licensure in California. It's an important issue. We still have a very low number of military licensees under our jurisdiction, but it's still a very important issue. So that would be the third one. That's my, I think that's all I have at this point, but obviously 655 and 3040 we'll want to jump to that.
So Dr. Wong, I think we want to remind everyone that these are recommendations that have come from the Legislation and Regulation Committee. So the first 2 are pretty simple. One is just a reauthorization for staff to find a sponsor for the foreign trained faculty permit. And then the second is the ability for staff to work with COA. Dr. Garcia is one of our subject matter experts, and DCA staff to bring you more information that might inform the board's intent. You know, are we looking to, waive fees? Are we looking to waive requirements? And what branches of military or what types of service, what sort of deployments are we looking to be able to impact? So giving the second would be to give staff the authority to work with COA on their bill and to gather more research. So we could take a motion for those 2 simple proposals, and then we can move to the discussions on the cleanup of AB 1534 resulting from the Stanton optical decision.
I think that's a good idea. So can we have a motion to authorize or direct staff to engage in discussions with COA and also to direct LegReg to develop proposed statutory language with a legal counsel? And then Dr. Garcia would be our subject matter expert in this regard, and he's also part of LegReg. So I need a motion, please.
It's Dave. I'll make that motion.
And a second?
And it's Sid. I'll go ahead and second.
Madam Moderator, if you could open up the Q&A for public comment.
I apologize. I was speaking on mute. This is the moderator. At the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. And Ms.
Madam
Linden,
President, it's Dave. I do have one comment that I just realized I did not make on 655.
okay.
So wait, oh, actually, Dr. Turetsky, hold on. We're going to save that. So I wanted to get the easy things out of the way.
Okay. In that case,
yeah.
I have no comment at all to make on this.
So while we're still on this issue, let's go ahead and take a vote on the motion that Dr. Turetsky made and Ms. Brandvine seconded. Ms. Linden, if you could do a can't talk more today. Roll call vote, please.
Okay. Member Brandvine?
Aye.
Dr. Garcia?
Aye.
Dr. Kawaguchi?
Aye.
Member Linden? Aye. Dr. Pruitt?
Aye.
Member Sims?
Aye.
Dr. Turetsky?
Aye.
Member Yu is absent. Member Moridomi?
Aye.
And Dr. Wong?
Aye.
Okay, so that's 9 ayes and 1 absence.
Oh, sorry, motion passes. Now that we've had that vote, Dr. Turetsky, would you like to address issue 655?
You know what? I'll address that as I go. Shara, would that be okay to address within the 1534 cleanup?
Yep, definitely, sir.
All right. I just wanted to make sure that my concern on that one got in there. So, okay, 1534 cleanup. This is something that the Ledger Edge Committee had reviewed at our last meeting, and based on a number of public comments and discussions that I've had with Shara and with Mark, I wanted to go over a few things that need to be adjusted with 1534 so it's more effective legislation. On September 10th, 2021, the legislature had passed 1534, and part of 1534 addressed the 21 amended citations that were filed against Stanton Optical. The bill implements new opticianry statutes, and those become effective January 1st, 2022, and it revises Section 655 of the Business and Professions Code to take effect in 2023, January 1st, 2023. The public record included the adoption by the board of a proposed decision from the administrative law judge regarding those 21 amended citations that were filed against Stanton Optical. And that decision showed that the factual findings and the legal conclusion is clear that we need to make some changes in the way that statute is currently written. Some of the basic things that all parties involved in the delivery of optometric services must enter into agreement to ensure the independence of the practice of optometry. Stanton Optical used a business and management service agreement to contract with an ophthalmology group that employed the optometrist in practice at Stanton Optical. And that ophthalmology group kind of acted as a middle person, and Stanton was able to get around the way that the statutes are currently written. So we need to rewrite the introduction in subsection D to require inclusion of, in D1 through D15, all agreements among ophthalmology groups, ophthalmic device dispensing businesses, optical companies, and optometrists. When the optometrist and the business companies are co-located, it has to be all agreements. Current language lists lease, this has to be all agreements. So that would be one thing which would help in the cleanup. We need to strike the text of subsection D16 so that ophthalmology groups are no longer exempted from ensuring the independence of optometrists from business or companies with which the optometrists are co-located. We need to create a definition within subsection Business and Profession Code 655A7, which defines what a co-location truly is. And we need to update reference within subsection Business and Profession 655A5 to ophthalmic device dispensing business and add the correct reference to Article 2.7. That same adopted decision by the administrative law judge also made the following issue kind of clear, that optometry and optician practices must clearly require compliance from individuals and entities. Entities were not necessarily listed. It was more individuals. So entities, individuals, entities, or corporations. Because the current statutes are specific to individuals, the board was unable to defend its claim that Stanton Optical illegally advertised the furnishing of optometric services. By adding entities and corporations, we will close up that loophole. Business and Profession Code Section 3040 also adds the word entity as applicable throughout the section. Business and Profession Section 3094 adds the word entity as applicable throughout that section as well. And this ensures the law applies to entities such as ophthalmic device dispensing businesses or optical companies, and again, not just individuals. I will get to a motion in a second. With anything from what I've said so far? With 655, if you could look at item 655, page 3, and I need the help of the licensees on the call, the professional board members, as to how this could be reworded. But there is a section 655, section 6, 655A, section 6, therapeutic ophthalmic product. You guys see that? Yes, no?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Therapeutic ophthalmic product means lenses or other products that provide direct treatment of eye disease or visual rehabilitation for diseased eyes. I don't think that wording is, I mean, I don't consider a quarter diopter of astigmatism to be a diseased eye. And it's not really providing a treatment, it's providing a refractive correction. So I think we need to change that wording in some way, if you guys agree with that.
David, so the definition of therapeutic ophthalmic product, is that trying to be specific for a therapeutic lens, or is that lenses in general?
There you go. That's what I'm trying to figure out here. As to, I think it should be prescriptive ophthalmic product instead of therapeutic ophthalmic product. And treatment, and I don't know if we're providing a treatment for an eye disease, because it is, I don't think myopia is officially classified as a disease, or hyperopia, or presbyopia.
I think people are reviewing myopia as a disease. Well, that is.
Yeah, but that's my,
right.
You know, the words really matter. When the board passed legislation, gosh, the board approved legislation that was going forward about 5-6 years ago, allowing optometrists to do blood checks for blood sugar. They meant to use the word finger sticks, and instead they used the word venipuncture. And that meant that an optometrist had to be a licensed phlebotomist in order to check somebody's blood sugar. So we got to get the right wording on this so it is properly, the interpretation is proper and not taken out of context.
Prescriptive lenses and therapeutic. So you don't think therapeutic treatment, we could write prescriptive lenses and therapeutic treatment?
Sure. That works. And I'm also concerned though about using the word treatment of eye disease. Because even if myopia is going to be classified as an eye disease, astigmatism isn't an eye disease. It's a refractive anomaly.
Well, you could have astigmatism from keratoconus.
Sure, then it's an eye disease. But the keratoconus is the eye disease, not the astigmatism. So how could we modify this so it's just, it's not as specific and it really covers what we're trying to have it cover?
So David, can you define what we're trying to cover?
I think that I just don't think we want to use the words therapeutic and eye disease alone. I think prescription and therapeutic ophthalmic products, where it says it means lenses or other products that provide direct treatment of eye disease. Maybe we add eye disease or refractive error.
Or conditions.
Refractive error or conditions, or visual rehabilitation for diseased eyes, or visual rehabilitation if somebody's amblyopic. That's not a disease either. So how would we add something to diseased eyes to make it more all-encompassing?
So David, so 6, the intent is to include any type of lenses for any reason. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, and not just for diseased eyes, but eyes with refractive errors.
Could you say conditions requiring visual rehabilitation? Because is visual rehabilitation the treatment that's trying to be covered?
That sounds good.
And David, what was the language before these proposed amendments specific to lenses?
Cheryl, was there any language prior to this?
Right. So, no, I'm going to go with no.
Because I don't recall seeing anything.
Right, because what we did in creating in our change in 1534 is we created new definitions in order to make this clearer. I think unfortunately this definition got mangled a bit. And so I think that we can very much give some technical expertise to the legislature on how this should be detailed. A good portion of the statutes that came over to the board when we took responsibility or authority over opticianry were less than perfect and did not include many definitions. So I think that through our process in the last 2 years of committee and board approval, but then of course, once you get to the legislature and we've got drafting, we've got a definition here that was newly developed, but doesn't fit as precisely as we had hoped when we discussed our legislative proposal before.
So should that be something that we discuss in greater detail here, or would that be taken care of by the legislature with input from you and from Mark as legislation moves forward?
So I think that we can include these because this is a change to 655. This is all cleanup to AB 1534 that we couldn't have cleaned it up, right? We didn't have a decision from an administrative judge. The board had adopted that decision at the end of the legislative session. So these are the main points that Dr. Turetsky mentioned earlier are things that we've learned after the final decision. But while we're in there, and we're going to be cleaning up 655, 3040, and I think 3059, it would make a lot of sense to look at this definition and have expertise from our professional board members in doing that. We can move forward today. If you'll on your screens is the motion that would give staff the opportunity to negotiate and to submit language to the legislature. We of course will bring that back to Leg Committee, and then before the board determines that it is taking any position on a bill, then the board would also, of course, review that recommendation and decide if it is supporting the legislation. So what we're looking for today is, because we know the process is messy, we're looking for the authority to go forward and implement the changes that have been made clear by the Stanton Optical decision, but also at the same time recognize that we need to have our professional members looking at this line by line, word by word, and that's what's going to get us the most accurate language when we're presenting that. When finally the legislature says, "Oh, these are your last amendments. Is this all the technical expertise you have?" We say yes. Our optometrists or opticians have gone line by line, word by word. But today we can move forward with giving the authority and then continue to have discussions along the way about how this becomes technically correct.
Can I make a comment before we move? Just with regard to number 6, looking at it, I agree that with the changes that were recommended, adding the prescriptive and then adding the treatment of eye disease or visual, I think we said error or condition. And in looking at this, it seems as if we just omit for diseased eyes, that makes sense because it's redundant, in my opinion anyway, because you already say treatment of eye disease or, and then we add that additional language that we discussed, the visual rehabilitation. I may not be saying it completely correct, but we talked about the error or condition and just end it there and get rid of this for diseased eyes. Just a suggestion. And then I'll make the motion to move.
So if it was changed in some way to read, prescriptive and therapeutic ophthalmic product means lenses or other products that provide direct treatment of eye conditions or visual rehabilitation for eyes, leaving out the word diseased.
That's what I was thinking, because you already say treatment of eye disease or visual rehabilitation. So I don't think there's a need to say diseased eyes
Or
at the end of that.
can you just leave out disease and eyes? Because if you say for treatment of eye disease or conditions, visual conditions requiring rehabilitation, both of those have reference to eyes. So you don't really
Precisely.
say eyes
That's
again.
what I was thinking.
Prescriptive, okay, so prescriptive and therapeutic ophthalmic product means lenses or other products that provide direct treatment of or for direct treatment of eye conditions or visual rehabilitation, period.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
That sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me too. It's good to have attorneys around. All right, then I like that. If nobody has any other comments on it, there's one other thing I'd like to point out. And if you go up a little bit to item number 2.
Number 2, okay.
Optical company means a person or entity. Optical company means a person or entity that is engaged in the manufacture, sale, or distribution to physicians, surgeons, optometrists, health plans, or dispensing opticians of lenses, frames, supplies, or appliances or devices or kindred products. My reading of that is that an optical company, so Dave's Optical Company, I manufacture, sell, or distribute to physicians and surgeons and optometrists and health plans. But it doesn't affect me if I directly dispense those products to a consumer. So Dave, the optical company, sells glasses directly to a consumer. And the way I read this is that since I'm not manufacturing or selling them to a physician or an optometrist or a health plan, I'm not impacted by that. Am I reading that correctly? And does that wording need to be changed?
If I can, I do want to direct folks to 655A5, where we do use registered dispensing optician means a person or entity licensed pursuant to Chapter 5. So we would also pursue a change to that so that it would more clearly, it would mirror the language that we have throughout the rest of the statute on registered dispensing ophthalmic device business, so that we then are getting those traditional RDOs. We're making sure that we're much more clearly regulating the population and the type of business that I apologize, I'm completely blanking on the word, that our actions against stent and optical look to regulate.
So Sheriff, we make that change, registered dispensing optician, or registered dispensing optician changing to ophthalmic business. Going back to 2, if we added one word, means a person or entity that is engaged in the manufacture, sale, or distribution to consumers, comma, physicians and surgeons, comma, optometrists. If we just add the term consumer in there, does that sort of cover it for everybody then?
Actually, yeah, that's a great suggestion. We hadn't talked about that before. Good one to come up with. Yeah, I mean, I think
it just came into my head.
Exactly. That's why you got to have professionals looking at it line by line. Yeah, I mean, I think that would create less ambiguity, so that when folks want to call something an optical company, it's like, it's clear. If you're going to call yourself an optical company, we're talking about whether you're direct to consumers or you're selling to professionals. But then also our registered dispensing ophthalmic device business is also referenced, so that the folks who are registered underneath the chapter are covered as well. Yeah, I love when we find the right word.
I don't think I have any other comments to make on this. So does anybody have any questions for me on what Ledge Reg has been doing with this?
Great job, David. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. So there's a motion that was put together, which is on the screen, that Ledge Reg is supporting. So if anybody would like to make that motion.
This is member Sandra Sims. I move to approve the legislative proposal discussed here today and delegate to the executive officer the authority to negotiate with and submit to the legislature changes to clarify the enforcement authority in the Optometry Practice Acts as informed by the factual findings and legal conclusions presented within the Stanton Optical decision adopted by the board on September 23rd, 2021.
Can I get a second for that?
I apologize, members. I'm sorry. Adoption date, public date, things always get confused. Would it be, could I offer, or maybe another board member could offer a friendly amendment that it's to the decision adopted by the board on August 23rd, 2023, made public on September 23rd, 2021. So just if we continue here with the adopted, it should say August 23 of 2021. 30 days later, it becomes available to the public. So sometimes folks get confused about which date it is, but adopted by the board on August 23rd, 2021.
Sandra, you want to make that friendly amendment?
I will make, this is board member Sandra Sims. I would make the friendly amendment that this was adopted by the board on August 23rd, 2021. And also presented to the board on September 23rd, 2021.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second the motion.
I'm sorry, Cheryl, I think you said something different. I thought you said made public September 23rd, 2021, not presented to the board on 2021.
Correct. It was made, it was part of public record. So 30 days after the signing, the board was actually presented the proposed decision on August 23rd. And Dr. Wong signed the board's adoption of that decision on August 23 of 2021 after the processing through the Administrative Law Office, Office of Administrative Law. Then the decision was made public on September 23rd, 2021. So adopted by the board on August 23rd, made public on September 23rd. I apologize, folks.
Okay, no problem. So I amend the proposal or the motion to say that it was adopted by the board on August 23rd, 2021, and presented to the public on September 23rd, 2021.
Okay, and this is Uni. I'll second the motion.
Madam Moderator, I'm sorry, Shar. Anything? If we could open up the Q&A for public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, looks like we do have a couple individuals who've requested public comments, so I'll go in the order of comments received. First, we have James Jack. James, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. I'll request to unmute your microphone now. All right, you are unmuted.
Good morning, President Wang and board members. First, just a question. James Jack here on behalf of National Vision. Dr. Turetsky outlined a number of proposed statutory changes in his comments, which seem to include 655 and 3040. Are all of those listed in the board packet for agenda item 6?
Mr. Jack, no, thank you so much. Not all of them are listed in the board packet or public materials. And that's why we're recommending to the board a more general motion, because we want to be able to take input from stakeholders just like you, as we've continued to have Dr. Turetsky and other subject matter experts, other stakeholders within the community make comment on what was made public. We're finding additional changes. So we will, in good faith, work with our stakeholders and make those available so that we can continue to talk about what the language really looks like. But the board's motion would give us an opportunity to enact, to pursue a proposal based upon the 2 points made clear within the findings of the Stanton Optical decision. So no, not everything is listed there. And we will, in good faith and good negotiations, make clear to stakeholders the other things that we have found that we think need to be addressed in order to fully implement the findings from the decision.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just use the balance of my time just for a comment there. And Shara, I mean, appreciate that response, and we appreciate the good working relationship we have with board staff. You and Mark are always terrific and responsive, and you should be complimented for that. You know, I will say that generally we have concerns about making more changes to 655 this soon after we just made significant and somewhat controversial changes to that section, and those changes have not taken statutory effect yet. Understand that this is being characterized as cleanup, but it's difficult for meaningful stakeholder engagement when this is language that was not discussed at the Ledge-Reg meeting in September, and some of it is being drafted on the fly here. And so we haven't had the opportunity to understand its impact and dialogue with board staff about this. I know Shara just described that dialogue will occur here moving forward, but we hope that the board would value having this input prior to acting on this, frankly. And so I think we would just at least ask the board to consider deferring action on approving language that has yet to be written until stakeholders can provide feedback to staff that can be presented back to the board. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. We'll move on to our next individual as requested public comment. Individual identified as Joe Neville. Be given 2 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. I will request to unmute your microphone now. All right, and you are unmuted.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Neville. Thanks for the opportunity to make a brief comment here. I'll simply echo what Mr. James just said. In hearing Dr. Turetsky describe a few things, I noticed that just simply wasn't in the board packet, and I heard the explanation from Executive Officer Murphy. But I guess I'll just kind of emphasize that I think what we've heard today is more than cleanup. It's significant. 1534 is very, very fresh and no opportunity to see how that plays out. I would not characterize changes to relationships between MDs and ODs as cleanup. It's more along the lines of monumental in light of the conversations and negotiations that took place with AB 684 back in 2015. And so again, the NAOO would like to continue its engagement with the board, which we've always appreciated over the years. Some of the items in D1 through 15 just simply would not apply in our experience with something beyond a landlord-tenant relationship. So I think all that does is emphasize the need for further conversation, perhaps not moving forward exactly as described in the meeting materials today, but get the stakeholder feedback first and then move on to whatever step the board thinks is the next one. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak up.
All right, this is the moderator. We'll move on to our next individual's requested public comment. Ruby Garcia. Ruby, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. I will request to unmute your microphone now.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all of this. I do appreciate Dr. Turetsky, some of the comments you made, and do agree that, yes, it'd be great for looking at all of what is being said in here. We're coming from the optician's point of view and how we're working many times with independent practices. More from an educational, we want to be able to tell opticians, okay, so this is what's going to happen in the future. And for that reason, we'd like to be involved in seeing what is going to be going out. But I do agree with what everyone is saying, and I thank you very much for this opportunity.
All right, next individual to request public comment, Christine Schultz. Christine, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. I will request to unmute your microphone now.
Hi, this is Christine Schultz representing the California Optometric Association. Just want to lend my support to the board's efforts to address some of the deficiencies that were identified in litigation, and look forward to working on this issue in the coming months. Thank you.
All right, this is a moderator. Appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Moderator. So we appreciate all comments, all public comments, and would the board like to continue with a vote on our motion at this point, at this time? Dr. Turetsky, I see your hand. Yes.
Since this is a proposal, and we're also proposing to work with stakeholders on this, I'll ask our legal counsel du jour if he feels there's any issue with what we've presented thus far.
You know, this is Michael Knotes. I'm not prepared to really comment or discuss the substance here. But in terms of procedure today, you do have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. So you will need to take a vote on the motion at this point. I'm sorry, I can't be more helpful there.
Perhaps I can offer an olive branch too. I apologize that the additional technical changes were not made available to the board and the public. And in good faith, staff will make sure that when we post the video of this board meeting, we will also include that draft list. We'll make it a draft and make it clear that it's an additional material so that folks are able to see what staff is considering right now. But this motion doesn't tie the board to any of those considerations, and doesn't tie us to taking a different tact on those considerations. But we wanted to make sure that we took time with Dr. Turetsky as subject matter expert to take a look at this, and that brought up other places within the statute that we needed to place, entity or corporation, or where there was, inaccurate language. So I want to make sure folks know that the motion that you have now doesn't hold you to any of the observations or suggestions made by staff or made by Dr. Turetsky. It gives us an opportunity, though, to get ourselves into the committee bill, which requires submission before I think December 10th. And of course, though, again, that language would come back to the committee, it would come back to the board, and this is not in any way, shape, or form the final of it, but this says we want a legislative proposal that writes some of the things that we found within litigation. So if that helps folks to assuage sort of any concerns that somehow or another we're jumping the gun, that's not the intention, and that's why we have so carefully worded the motion here today, that it really is to clarify enforcement authority informed by the factual findings and legal conclusions presented in that Stanton Optical decision.
So Cheryl, you've answered one of my questions. That's, what are our timelines and what are our time deadlines? So there's to get the ball rolling. You've indicated December 10th deadline. I also note that David is on holdover status, so we may not have him at some point later on this year. I'd like to benefit from his expertise as much as we can. Can this matter be further discussed at the Ledge Reg Committee so that we give an opportunity for the stakeholders to present their expertise to the Ledge Reg Committee, and then have the Ledge Reg Committee move to modify the legislation if based on those conversations?
Most certainly, most certainly. And that was fully our intention. We do want, yes, we will intend that this proposal would come back to the Ledge Reg Committee the first meeting of 2022. And of course, then we're working through the legislative calendar. We would have until August to make final changes and to work with the legislature and stakeholders in order to make language as it should be.
And then how does it look if we tell the legislature or the committee, oops, we don't want to put that word in the proposal that we gave you?
It's not a whoops. We've had, continued discussions with stakeholders, and just as we have in the past years, we always include legislative staff in those discussions. And so oftentimes legislative staff will say, well, this actually doesn't mirror what's also in the Business and Professions Code. Great suggestion, but how about we discuss whether or not this should work instead? And so there'll be that back and forth between staff, stakeholders, our subject matter experts, meaning our members of the committee, and our chair of the committee.
Thank you.
This is Jeff Garcia. So given all the information that this is a process and more opportunities in the future to make adjustments, I move to approve the legislative proposal discussed here today and delegate to the executive officer the authority to negotiate and submit to the legislature changes to clarify enforcement authority in the Optometry Practice Act as informed by factual findings and legal conclusions presented within the Stanton Optical decision adopted by the board on September 23rd, 2021.
Can I get a second?
Well, legal counsel, I'm confused. I thought we already had a motion on the table.
We have that. We have the motion with the correction of dates already second.
Okay. I second.
That's correct.
So we just need a vote.
I have a comment. It's Glenn. So I have concerns about the proposed motion. I'm on the Ledge Reg Committee. We didn't really have a chance to discuss this in detail. And while I don't disagree that there are some changes that should be considered, I'm not ready to delegate authority the way that it's worded currently in the motion. I do look forward to additional ability to hear things as we move forward, whether it's through the committee or through the board, but I just wanted to explain where I'm at related to this motion.
Does anybody have any other comments other than Glenn? Nope. All right.
Oh, I have a question just to clarify. Shara, you had mentioned a December 10th date to submit some language or to the legislative committees.
Yes, so we'll need to submit a proposal basically that says, I mean, essentially what we've got, the language here, that we would like to be included in a committee bill in order to clarify the enforcement authority of the Optometry Act against those two factual findings, and we can present very clearly you know, the two findings pulled directly from the decision. So even on December 10th, we're not necessarily giving anyone exact language, more than likely, right? What they're doing is changing a word within the chapters or within the sections that we think we need to change. And so there would likely be no need to have a bill drafted that doesn't have additional comment from reg or stakeholders. We would simply be a part of that bill as part of a placeholder, and then submit language to the committee as they go through the committee process and take amendments to the bill.
Mm-hmm. And then just to clarify, because I believe the next reg meeting isn't until February 18th of next year. So so if we were to try to wait until after that meeting, it seems like we might kind of miss this opportunity to just put that placeholder in for what we intend to do.
That is true. My calendar is not directly in front of me, but I do believe that it's either that date or a date 7 days following that is the end of an opportunity to submit an initial legislative proposal.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Sid, I saw your hand go up.
Yes, thanks. Just maybe for consideration, since the next committee meeting is after the new year, if a working group was appointed to work with the team ahead of the December 10th deadline, we could ensure that we've got some experts that are working with the board and its team to represent that which we would like to move forward now, and then hold over that which we would like for further discussion and through the committee structure for after the first of the year. Just a thought.
I love that thought. In fact, as Dr. Turetsky, Mark, and I were reviewing language yesterday, he said, you know, who'd have a good suggestion for this? Dr. Kawaguchi. So we would love an official working group and an additional input from someone that we could meet with in order to continue to go through this line by line and word by word. Thank you, Member Brandvine.
Do we want to, does anyone want to volunteer for a work group? Dr. Turetsky and Kawaguchi?
Yes, I'd be open to that.
Sure.
Let's go ahead and establish a work group then to work with staff on language.
Now, we do have a motion on the floor, so we would need to address that as well.
Do we want to add a friendly amendment to add a work group to work with staff on language to our proposed motion?
Legal counsel, would we need to pull the motion first to then do the work group to then add the work group? What is the process here?
I don't think you need a motion for the work group. I think the board president can establish that. If you'd like to make it part of the motion, we can use the Robert's rules isn't strictly required in board meetings, but we would definitely need the consent of the motion maker and the member who seconded the motion. But again, I don't think we need that within the motion. unless the EO thinks differently.
No, all non-statutorily required committees or work groups are at the discretion of the president. So, and as long as they are members of the board. And so I think that the record here showing that we've developed a work group was sufficient for us to know that the intent of the board is to make sure that we're working with our subject matter experts and engaging our stakeholders to create language that will eventually be amended into a legislative proposal.
And I consent as the maker of the motion.
All right, so then we're not going to add the work group to the motion, and I'm just appointing the work groups to be Drs. Turetsky and Kawaguchi. And let's go ahead and have a vote, Ms. Linden.
You're on mute.
Member Brandine,
Aye.
Dr. Garcia,
Aye.
Dr. Kawaguchi,
Nay.
Member Linden, aye. Dr. Pruitt,
Aye.
Member Sims,
Aye.
Dr. Turetsky,
Aye.
Member Yu is absent. Member Mordomi,
Aye.
and Dr. Wong.
Aye.
Okay. So that's 8 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 absent member.
Okay.
So the motion passes.
All right, so as of right now, that's my time. It's 12:18. Do we want to break for lunch, or Shara, do you want to do your EO's report before we break for lunch?
It was our intention. Okay, to break for lunch at this point. That would give us an opportunity to reconvene when our new member, Donald Yu, will be available to join us. And then we can move through the executive officer's report after everyone's had a bit of time to re-nourish themselves. I think we were thinking about a half an hour or 45 minutes. I don't know what the pleasure of the board would be.
Does anyone have a preference? It's 12:19 right now. We can either reconvene in 25 minutes at 12:45 or 30 minutes at 12:50 or just at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock sounds good to me.
All right.
1
Let's break until 1 p.m., please.
Thank you.
Thanks.